welcome listeners back to YUH with Lisa, Phil, and Aaron. This week we're talking to Felicity Harley, who wrote The Burning Years Until the Last Quartet. It is a kind of, I guess, would you call it dystopian, apocalyptic, or a combination? As far as like getting it there. It actually does have a lot of hope. Okay. In spite of the fact that, a lot. Well, go ahead and talk about your book, Felicity.
Sure. I don't think of it really as being dystopian because I think we are actually going to get hit very badly with the effects of climate change. It's really going very fast now, and I believe that, we might even go to 3 or 4 degrees Celsius over what we are now, which will really be very, very hard because we'd lose 60% of the food we produce on Earth. And there would be an ocean rise and all kinds of things. So I don't think of it as making things up. It's really based on the latest scientific research that I've done for the book. But it does have some hope that we'll find ways to survive using science and technology, some of the science and technology that we've developed that would help us survive either under the surface of the planet or under domes or in artificial environments. So that is my thesis. And of course, it's a series, so I have 5 books. So this is the first one, and they're all written, and I do have a great publisher. He's going to publish the books over the next 2 years. And so the story goes on, but the focus is, how do we live and manage and survive climate change?
Well, the parts, like when I break down a book or a science fiction movie, the parts I always like is the world building. And that's what appealed to me about this, I guess, because it is the first one, describing how we got to this point. There's a flashpoint, a nuclear event that alters the atmosphere or the weather patterns, right? And all these severe, tornadoes and hurricanes and earthquakes result from this climate change. So explain to me a little bit, is this an interesting part of the story for you to like build the world and think about things that you project to happen in the wake of a cataclysmic event like that?
It did. I love to build worlds, and so it was very interesting to research the kinds of things, for instance, you'd need if you built an underground city. What would you need in order for that city to exist? You'd need proper air coming in and out. You'd need energy that you could drive it with that was still available. Some of it, I get energy from the surface. You'd have to grow food and find ways of growing food. And sanitation, yes, sanitation, exactly. And also disposing of bodies when people die. So there were a lot of sort of very interesting, there was a lot of interesting science that I looked at in order to build those worlds. And then the worlds I built under the caverns were both in Deep Creek and also the caverns that were on the I can never say it, Ogallala reservoir underneath on the water table. I really wanted to create places to live that seemed possible and means of producing food that seemed possible in a very difficult environment. And one of the things that I needed if you grew food in caves was pollinators. And so there are pollinators, moths they've developed this breed of moths that pollinate in the dark. So if food was grown in a rather dark environment, you would have to pollinate it. So there were a lot of little things I researched, and there's a wonderful scientist called Rachel Armstrong, and she's built a DNA out of chemicals. It's a chemical DNA called protocells, and they're very interesting, and they can create buildings that are responsive to human beings. They can create clothes that are responsive to human beings, and while they haven't perfected this process, it's definitely being researched right now. So I really like that idea a lot as well.
Me too.
So yeah, I love to build worlds.
Yeah, I love that idea. Organic, almost really when it comes to it, organic. But I
Yes.
mean, I do worry about things like, you know, the ramifications of messing with nature so much. But your book really just it covers more the hope of it, and I like that. You
Yes.
build a
Yeah.
world that, in spite of the fact that it's collapsing, you feel hope all the way through.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, because the dystopian writers, I sort of avoided that. There's a couple that are quite good. There's a book called American Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've read that, but it's an excellent book about the breakdown of the US, and Civil War. The film was a bit like that, but the American Wars is more detailed. It's more about the loss of energy and the fighting over, how you get gas or oil if you need it, and people in the South. And it's a very interesting book. And then Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, who's one of my absolutely favorites. That
Oh
is,
yeah, I've been reading her since I was a teenager.
so that book about the breakdown of society in LA and how people, have to be on the road. And so I thought she's written that. I don't really want to write that. I want to write something different, how we survive. And as my book goes on, it's rather interesting given the current political situation with Elon Musk. The people who are the protagonists in my next books are tech brothers. And Tom is a tech brother, as you know. He's a tech brother with a bit of a conscience. And he is the one that builds the city in the cave with his money. But he's part of a rather dystopian ruling cabinet that consists of the very rich. I've always had seen that it would come to pass that billionaires would in fact be the ones who would make the decisions about who survived and who didn't. And it's rather interesting that suddenly we have an Elon Musk on hand who exactly resembles, in my second book, one of the main characters.
Looking a lot like an oligarchy now, huh?
Yes, we have an oligarchy or plutocracy. And this next character, Walton James, that comes into the second novel, could be Elon Musk, and his main goal in life is to extend his life. That's all he wants. He wants to find a way to live forever, for a very long time. And so I had a lot of fun with the idea that these billionaires and oligarchs come, but they haven't yet cracked the secret of eternal life. They've tried, but they haven't. And this is what Tom, in my book, as you know, really wanted to do. Because Peter had developed these bioengineered human beings who would live, not forever, but they would definitely live for 200 years or more, because they were unique and in their makeup. And he wants to find out how they were engineered so he can live a very long time. But that actually doesn't happen because, as you know, one of my characters hides the information from the plutocrats. So yes, it doesn't surprise me that we now are dealing with billionaires running the world and running this country. So and then as climate change rapidly advances, that's a problem. It's a terrible combination for most
You can
people. And
see-
you know, Zuckerberg's built his fortress on Hawaii.
Mhm.
He's built it for about $200 million because he hopes he's sort of like Tom, exactly my Tom too. He hopes that he can live there and survive whatever's coming. I need to tell him that you need a community of a certain amount of people in order to survive. So that was another thing I had to learn, was how many people in a community do you have to have? So there's not genetic inbreeding, you know, so intermarriage, you know, and so on and through the years. So I had to sort of look at that and how do you introduce
Mhm.
new
How
genetics
many
into
children
that?
does Musk have at this point?
I think he has about 17 or something. Yes, he has a
Whoa.
lot. He believes he
I
should
did not know that.
breed because because his you know, he's special. He's very smart. And because he's so smart, he must breed with others in order to produce smarter people in the world.
Wow.
That's
Is that
Musk's theory.
eugenics?
So yeah, we got
Eugenics, basically?
eugenics
So
coming
it's
into the
Yeah, you do.
plutocracy.
Definite eugenics, without any question. I mean, you can already see that. And you have
Yeah.
to remember, Musk grew up in South Africa,
how many children?
which was an apartheid country, and his a lot of the money that he started with came from from mining diamonds. So
Well,
That's
yeah.
still a lot.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's rather funny that, you know, 10 years ago when I started to write this, I had already I had already sort of anticipated that these would be the ones that we would be you know, dealing with.
Right. I see
The
so
ones with the
many
rockets.
things. What's that, Aaron? I'm sorry.
Oh, the ones with the rockets.
Yeah, right. SpaceX. It's
Mhm.
also got your internet.
Yes, he's got your internet, your SpaceX, your space travel, your
Yeah.
full spectrum
He's got
domination.
me on Starlink. I'm in the
Yes, and
mountains.
Starlink. Yes, he's got it. He's got it all, and it's kind of interesting. But let me also say that my book goes on further to talk about these others that are here with us that we know because of the UFOs. I also am very interested in that, and that comes into my book. So I do want to say to Mr. Musk, you are not at the apex. There are others here who are the apex predators, and we do not know what they want, and we do not know why they are here. I don't know if you saw the hearing in Congress with all the Navy admiral and fighter
Mhm.
pilots, and they all expressing the fact that they in fact had seen and knew that there were you know, craft from elsewhere, from other, who knows where
Yeah.
they're from, dimensions, planets. But my book,
Videos and everything. Yeah.
yes, the series goes on to that, but this particular book really does focus on climate change and how can we manage that. So
Right.
yeah,
I see
I'm
a lot of in the book. A lot of the book is relatable to things that are happening. You can see things happening, like these hurricanes just intensify from year to year, and it's like one after the other comes, and it just ravages the earth. You know,
yes, yes,
and
no,
our winters here are becoming less
yes,
severe
yes,
over time. You know,
Droughts on
yes,
the East Coast now.
definitely on the East Coast. I mean, we've had a November where the weather's been in the 50s and 60s. I can never remember that. And then,
right.
you know, the oceans are warming at a great temperature, which is not good for many things. But the hurricanes, you're right, very much so, and they will get worse, tornadoes, and also earthquakes and other tsunamis and things like that, because uh, pressure is put on the earth in certain ways, and it causes these things to happen.
Yeah.
So yes, and they are relatable back to to the climate, and I did a lot of research on that. Science isn't really my field, so it was interesting. I write novels and poetry, so it was interesting that I just decided, 10 years ago when I start working, that this was what I wanted to write, was science fiction. It was a strange idea for me to do it, and then to read all the physics and all the statistics and things I had to research was interesting, but some of it I don't retain. So I do know that earthquakes can be caused by climate change, but I do not know the exact science of that off the top of my head. I know it exists, but I would have to re-research it.
I think
And
good science fiction could transcend, or sometimes it can be too meticulous and too informative, and almost be obtuse to people,
Yes.
and to incorporate your science fiction with a human story. And I think you did a good job of humanizing the heroes in the story while projecting these like oligarchs. They're sort of like, the oligarchs are kind of like,
They're bad guys,
kind
but
of,
they're not really
they
bad
kind of
guys.
seem MAGA,
Or bad guys.
MAGA-ish, they seem
Right,
MAGA-ish, but they come across kind of like the parents in Peanuts that are yelling at their children. They're like
In the book, yeah.
they're off in the periphery, and they're setting the tone for this. So I think that also plays in.
When they kill the people near the beginning.
Right, but I think it goes into what you were saying about it being optimistic and uplifting. I feel like it set a tone. Now it may change later. You might have key figures in the novel, the subsequent novels, where these oligarchs come out of the woodwork, with their fangs and their,
Oh yes, they
everything.
do. They come out of the woodwork. In fact, they do have fangs, because one of the things they indulge themselves in is taking the blood of young people and transporting it into their own bodies. And that's another thing they're looking into. They do, in fact, inject them. They don't drain these young people of blood. They take young blood and they inject it into their systems. There's a name for it, but they're doing it already. People like Peter Thiel and others, and they have these amazing labs that we don't really know about. So I do have a lab in my book, but not this is of course fiction. And but they do have these labs where they are examining. They're doing a lot of genetic research. And in my next book, I really look at this genetic research, where they begin to alter their make themselves into superhumans, because we have CRISPR, which can go in and tweak DNA. I'm very interested in DNA and how we can use that. In my books, DNA will soon be a storage for us. We'll store information on DNA pretty soon, and it will be like a disk, it's got the capacity to store a lot of information. So I think we're going into that field too. So, but I'm so glad you liked the story, because when I first started writing, I worked with an editor who told me, when he read my books, he says, I'm not a science fiction person. I don't care about the science in this. All I care about is that you write a decent novel, and
Right.
you make it work. Yeah. So
Right.
he made me rewrite it a few times, and I'm very glad I needed that. I needed a good editor, and he was very strict, and
Right.
didn't get sort of. He said, I know you love this science, but you can't put too much of it in the book. Just like you said, you've got to focus on human emotion. You've got to tell me what things smell like, what they taste like, that's what I need. And he really helped me.
Well, I think that that's true of
Kitchen chair.
Aaron's favorite writer, Vonnegut. I felt like when we read Sirens, what was it?
Sirens of Titan.
The Sirens of Titan. I think Vonnegut does a good job, although he's very technical at times, but he does a good job of humanizing the stories,
Yes,
I
he
think
does.
if you asked Vonnegut, he'd say he's the least technical of any sci-fi writer
Yes,
ever.
he's not one of the ones I would fit.
He'll
Stanislav
just give it a
Lem.
silly name.
Yes, yes, he would. He was
That's
very
true.
smart.
Mandibulum. What was it? The
Yeah, right.
Fandibulum.
He was really,
And
really good. You know, part of my next book is sort of one of my, the preeminent books is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And so I do create someone who's part alien and part human through DNA manipulation. And that sort of always fascinated me, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So my guy is actually not a Frankenstein. He's rather a romantic hero. But he's also unpredictable. So, you don't really know because he's not human, not fully human. So it's always interesting to me to look to people, stranger in a strange land. He's sort of a little bit stranger in a strange land, a little bit Frankenstein. So there were people I really looked at. Like Vonnegut was one of them. I've always liked Vonnegut, but I love Foundation, of course, by Asimov. He's one of my favorites. And, Philip K. Dick is brilliant.
My two favorites are Dick and Vonnegut.
Oh, they are? Yes. No, he's wonderful. And Butler, Octavia Butler. And I mean, you can go on. Ursula Le Guin really had the sort of social sort of what does it, gender fluidity. She really dealt with that. What does it mean? Our focus, our patriarchies, our other things. So yeah, there's some
I know
amazing.
my favorites is Anne McCaffrey.
Tell me about.
Engineering.
I haven't read him. Tell me about. Is he contemporary?
She's more
Anne
fantasy,
McCaffrey.
right? She's the dragons.
She's an American. She's an Irish expat from America. It's not really fantasy. No, it's based on science. It's 100% science. What it is almost all of her books are set in the future. And like, for instance, there's a lot of DNA manipulation, social engineerings. One of the things is there's a story about a child who's born and they're going to die. Okay. So
Yeah.
what they have this program
That could
called
be said of every
Shell
child who's born.
This kid's gonna die.
like
Unless they do something real soon. Like not
We
make
all are.
okay. Whatever. But shell people.
Even the ones we've been talking
What
about.
they do is they encapsulate these
We
people
hope
in
soon.
They raise the babies to a certain point, and then they encapsulate them in titanium shells. And they raise them from that point forward as shell people. So they're never going to get a physical touch because,
No, that was the ship series, right? The ship who
ship
sank.
series. Well, the dinosaur series is set in the same universe. What they do is it's a group of people who decide to live in a more anachronistic way. So they move to this planet kind of outside the galaxy a little ways. And one of the things that they do is they use genetic manipulation to alter these kind of psychic lizards. And they slowly
that sounds like Philip K. Dick right there.
Breed them until they are big enough for people to ride. And but they also still can like mind speak.
Yes. No, mind speak. Yeah. Oh, keep going.
That's it.
No, mind.
But it's really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go. No.
Well, it is science, and it's set in a future universe. But the society that they create is a feudal society.
Yes. Well, often.
So
with the dragons.
Dragon Riders of Pern. There's another series called the Dinosaur Planet series. And with that series, what happened is these aliens liked the dinosaurs, saw the end of the dinosaurs, and took them to another planet. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. But
let's
go back to your book.
Yes.
Yes. In spite of me talking for the last 4 minutes, we're to Felicity Harley about the burning years, The Last Quartet, the first book in a 5-book series about climate change, science, and hope for humanity's future.
Yes, that is absolutely true. In the last book, there is a lot of hope because people emerge from living underground onto the surface of the planet and create an interesting society there that that's a little bit, it's not even utopian, it's quite science and technology. You know, I have some big battles, of course, with the plutocrats who also emerge and want to be in control of the world. And that's sort of, I think, a little bit of the story of this series is that that we're in a dialectic world. We're in a world where we're always, dealing with chaos or order or however you like to think of it. And we're constantly in this this fight of trying to of keeping these two forces in balance, if you like. And if they get out of balance, like we've allowed to happen around climate change, then it's very serious. And then, of course, yeah, so that has been my big passion, and I'm not happy with the current administration that's coming in because they are not. Their whole thing is drill, baby, drill, and we will lose a lot of ground on.
He's going to destroy the EPA.
Yes, destroy the EPA. Destroy the any controls or regulations that could be put on emissions or CO2 emissions that are going to be the things that give us the most trouble as they, trap hot, the heat under the clouds in our atmosphere. That's what's going to happen, and it's a dreadful scenario, and nothing. It seems that people cannot. It's such a big issue that people can't grasp it. And I understand that, I've got to go to school. I've got to, get my kids to school. I've got to get the groceries. I've got to go to my job. I can't think about climate change now. And, unfortunately, they will be thinking about it in 10 or 15 years. And I say to people, you need to manage it now. And my advice is move north, move as far north as you can, because those will be the places where you can actually grow food and find water, because water is going to be a big issue too, of course.
Now,
Well, we're not really a political podcast per se, but it's alarming to all
Sometimes
of
we
us.
are.
I think sometimes we are.
yeah.
And I don't know. I think that what happened is that people actually push back on feeling having been made to feel dumb, or push back on and rebelled against some of the preaching that they felt was being done to them. And I think the results could be absolutely catastrophic.
Catastrophic, yes. The results will be catastrophic, and
I
particularly
think a lot
around
of
the
smart
climate.
people trying to understand why a lot of smart people
Yes.
voted for this administration. I don't understand it, but there had to
Yes.
be a lot of smart people that did.
Well, no, definitely. I think it's very difficult to understand inflation and economics. That's a very, very complicated thing to understand. And it seems an easy thing to fix, and it isn't. It's rather complicated. And I think, our society has become so complicated in a way. And climate change is one of the much more complicated issues, because it just doesn't seem immediate. And that's the problem, that it's going to be a lot more immediate than people think.
Right.
So
Well, just in our lifetime, I can remember almost every winter you would have a 2 or 3 snowstorms that would bury you under
yes,
snow, almost
It
shut the
had
city.
that for
But
years.
we rarely get anything close to that anymore.
I've had
Our
two
climate's definitely
those
shifted.
this year.
Huh?
in my new
where are
house.
you located, Erin?
I'm in Pine Mountain Club, California.
Where is that?
You know what the Grapevine is? The part of I-5 where it goes over the Tejon Pass. And then they get snow up there. You'll see snow on the freeways all the time.
Is it Northern California?
It's still it's between
Yep.
LA and Bakersfield.
Oh yes, I know that right. Yeah, I was just in California. I actually drove on that road. I drove on that main freeway up to the north, through
Yeah.
up
So
to San Francisco.
I'm about 25 minutes west of the five,
Okay,
basically at the
yes,
top of the mountain. And then
yes.
once you get into town, I'm another 1,200 feet up.
Oh, nice. What a beautiful place to live.
Yeah, we're in the Los Padres National Forest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do
How
you
long have
worry
you been
about,
there, Eileen?
Um,
About what? A
beginning of
month?
October, I guess we started moving.
Yeah.
do you worry about fires?
Um, they haven't had any fires on this particular mountain, especially on the north face where I am.
Yes,
We get running water kind of all year long, and the water that we drink up here comes from, I think there's 6 wells they dug when they created this community. It's a weird little
yes,
town.
yes.
I
How
think
did
it's
you find
used
it?
for we were looking for places. We sold the house in Thousand Oaks and bought this one outright, so we don't have a mortgage anymore.
Yes,
And this was it's a bigger house than the other one and really nicer. It's just far away from everything.
yes, yes. Well, that's a nice place to be right now. And also,
Yeah,
uh, California. I do worry about fires. My friends live in Santa
mm,
Barbara,
yeah.
and they live up in the mountains there, and their house burned down,
Oh,
13 years
just
ago.
oh,
Yes, and now they rebuild, and I do worry that, um, they're vulnerable for another
yeah.
burn, really.
So
Um,
that was the fire where the pier burnt, right?
yes, yes, was. In Ohio, as you said, your winters are getting a lot less. And up here, of course, that's happening too in Connecticut, where I live.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I do go for 2.5 months to the Caribbean, to a little island called Bequia and in St. Vincent in the Grenadines. My
Oh,
mother
that's
was from there. And
okay.
yeah, they just got hit by a major hurricane. So I've
Yeah,
been working to on climate mitigation programs through a foundation that I started quite a few years ago there. So um, those small islands, though, are going to suffer terribly as climate change advances because of the hurricanes. Um,
yeah.
Well,
and
Haiti
yeah,
is, I mean, if it was me, I would have moved. I mean,
yes,
you
yes,
know,
If you
by
yes,
now I
can.
would have moved from Haiti.
yes.
Sorry,
No,
just
no, you're right.
just a certain amount of common
It's
sense.
a long swim off that island.
it is a long swim. Well, as I said, I worry for my friends who are there because we just go and we have a very small house that might belong to my family. But our
Mm,
major place of living is up here in the woods in Connecticut, where we have a lot of deer. We have great lakes and ponds all around us. And so we have food and we have water that's accessible for the time being. So
Yeah.
yeah,
that's a good thing.
we have
Yeah.
deer. We've had a bobcat in the driveway. Um,
Mhm.
they have bears up here, but uh, right at about the same time we moved, they got rid of it was either 9 or 11 of the problem bears that they've.
Yes, we don't have bears yet, but we do on the west side of Connecticut. A lot of bears, and I would
Yeah.
say there have been bears that are close um, uh, to our property. My husband keeps bees, so
Mm,
we don't have anything around our hives. So we're rather nervous that the bears will in fact discover them, and
Yeah.
uh,
so far
Get
so
we
good.
when
Yeah.
when we were in escrow still, we came up to visit the house to look at it, and a bear had broken the door jamb in the front door,
Wow.
gotten in, found an old bag of prunes.
Huh.
They had an expiration date of 2014, and I guess he ate the prunes, and
Oh
then
my
there was a
gosh.
bottle of saffron oil tipped over on the front deck, just kind of dripping down below. So he chewed the lid off of that too.
Oh, he's not going to be in good shape
No,
with the prunes in the saffron
maybe
oil.
maybe he
Maybe,
knew what he was doing. Maybe maybe
Maybe
he
he was
was
Yeah,
in
he knew
constipated.
what he
abdominal
was doing.
distress. Yeah.
Maybe he was constipated.
Yes, he could have been. Who
It's
knows? My
it's bizarre
goodness.
that
it
choice there.
Yes,
may be a little unsettling.
yes.
A little.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's
Yeah.
when
Okay.
right after that we got the unwelcome mats, which are
Oh, yeah.
basically really long bits of plywood with nails pounded through it about an inch, half inch apart. It's like a bed of nails, and we set it in front of the front steps, and it discourages the bears. Once they touch it, they don't come back.
They don't come
You
back.
got to
Oh,
remember
that's
that's
good to
there
know.
when you go out in the middle of the night. You go
Yeah.
running down those steps.
Well, we
Yeah.
we finally picked them up and
Yes.
put them under the porch.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
our realtor did step on. He forgot they were there, and he was running to do something. And he had one go through his shoe.
Oh
Ouch.
no.
Ouch.
Oh,
Did it go
ow.
into his foot?
Yeah.
I know exactly what that feels like. I literally stepped on a nail one time when I was a kid that it
Mm.
was in a board and it went up through my shoe and was literally pushing the skin up but didn't break the skin on top.
Oh, you got lucky.
Yes.
I guess. I mean, it broke the
Oh,
skin underneath. It went through,
oh, it did go through.
But yeah, it went through. It was pushing the skin of my foot up. They had to take the nail out to get my shoe off,
Mm.
but you could see it like pushing it up, but it didn't break the skin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tetanus shot for Lisa.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
Oh, well,
That's right.
to this
Well,
day, I just get tetanus boosters because my doctor, and I quote, said, "Yeah, I've met you."
oh dear. Well, I
So
yes,
get
to
back
go
to the
back
book a
to
little
the
bit.
yes.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah, to get back to the book. There was a
Yes.
little I like some of the relationships between the characters, like Hatoto and Iman. That was
Yes.
interesting.
Hototo and Inanna, yeah.
Inanna, yeah, Inanna,
Yes.
yeah. That sort of had a it was adversarial at first, and then it relaxed, and to the point where he helped her.
Well, I think yeah, I guess when she gets tied up, there is some adversarialness there.
Yeah,
But he wasn't adversarial. He just needed to protect
right.
himself.
Everybody was suspicious of one
Yeah,
another at that
yeah.
point, but.
And you kind of
Yes.
are. You have to be.
So you talked before about she was transhuman, right? You alluded to that before, but I don't think we talked about what
Yes.
transhuman was.
Well, her particular transhuman is that she was bioengineered. So she basically had a lot of her systems changed. Like she had supersonic legs, she had steel legs. She had her brain chipped with so it was wired for directly receiving information from anything that that she needed to
Desires.
communicate with, so
Yeah.
she could
Kind of
she could hook right into the web if she tied into it, and the information would go directly into her brain. And then she also she was basically bionic, and her skin had been changed so that she could go outside when it was very hot, and she wouldn't get cancer from the breakdown of the ozone layer. And I sort
Probably
of
a form
based
of photosynthesis.
Yes, yes. Well, but no, skin would have been different to ours, and she basically was able to relay information inside her body through wires and other pieces of machinery that were put in there. But she was both. She was both biological um, and technological. And there's a woman in San Francisco who sort of has designed these sorts of people. If you go to my website, you'll see all the things that Inanna got. She got special eyes, that night vision eyes. I mean, she's sort of almost a cyborg, but not, because she's biological as well. And
Yeah.
a lot of people are saying that these people who are coming in these spacecraft, people who have met them, say that they've also been they're biological, but they're also bioengineered. So they're both biological and technological. I don't really understand how you can do that, but people who are much more trained in the field, in this sort of field than I am, have really sort of looked into that and
Mhm.
um, say
Sort of
it
like
will be possible. Yeah, it will be
sort of
possible
like
to do.
Jamie Summers.
Mhm.
Maybe Jamie Summers would play
Yeah.
her. Or
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Lindsay.
bionic woman with an internet connection. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes, that's a very good. The bionic woman with an internet connection, and
Yeah.
you know, as the books go on, you get more into that idea that we are, you know, the sort of Elon Musk idea that we'll all be chipped, our brains will all be chipped, that people
He's not chipping mine.
yes, that they have a chip in their brain that feeds directly through wireless into databases, so you don't have to write anything down. You just think it and it goes straight in, and then the databases make sense about the artificial intelligence. I don't go a lot into artificial intelligence and you know what it's capable of. My books don't deal with artificial intelligence taking over the world, um, or you know, but I do deal with it in that way that humans are. It's always the biological connected to the artificial intelligence. So I don't see artificial intelligence as in my world as taking over. Although I do think we do have to be careful. I mean, I think you know, the main thing I think about with artificial intelligence, if it gets so intelligent that it can control our, you know, say power grid, and it decides that it doesn't like what we're doing, like Hal in 2001, you know, open the Bombay doors. Hal, I can't do that, Dave. I'm sorry. If it feels threatened, that it could, you know, really mess with our system. So I think that's a whole theme that I didn't take on in the books. I was more interested in how do you match, how do you technologically sort of expand the human
Mhm.
body and so on and so forth.
That's the
Sort of
name of my Starlink network is HAL 9000.
Yes, HAL
ah,
9000. Yes,
I'll be
exactly.
looking for
And
that
in the
next time I'm
second book,
hiking.
my character, she calls her computer HAL 9000, of
Oh,
course.
cool.
Yes.
Sweet. So
So,
there's two concurrent stories kind of going on, or two like focuses. You know, there's the ship Persephone
yes, Persephone, exactly.
and its crew members that are going on a
Yes,
mission to Mars to look
And past
into
Mars.
and past Mars to look into colonization options, right?
yes, of Alpha Centauri. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the ground game, and that's with Peter
That's
and
Yes.
the Earth game.
yeah, and Sophie.
Sophie, Peter, Inanna, Rajiv,
And they're kind of
Yes.
being chased by
Sarah.
they're being chased by the government
Yes.
Yes.
because Sophie had subverted the weather control system that they
Yes,
had.
she had.
And they stole their transhumans.
Yeah. Now I don't
Yes.
know if I want to reveal too much more because people should read the book.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
that's interesting that the two concurrent stories and then the way
Mhm.
that yeah, I will say that there's a glimmer of hope towards the end on the Persephone
Persephone.
You said it right the
Persephone
first time. Yeah.
and the Persephone track.
Mhm.
There's a sense of hope towards the end of the
Yeah.
book that it's
Yes.
kind of a guiding light, I guess.
Yes. Well, they
No,
do.
mhm.
Yes. No, they do make it. And in the book too, one of the things I touch on very briefly, but I develop further, um, is the idea of a parallel world and doppelgangers, which is very a big thing in physics now, and you know that there are multiverses and parallel worlds, and so I do touch a little bit on that in the first book, and then in the following books I get a little bit more into it. I create a parallel world where they use Tesla's theories, you know, which I love to, you know, the whole Tesla theory of energy,
Mhm.
and unlike us, they they didn't use fossil fuels. And so I use it just as a sort of mirror, a mirror world, as just to say, look, what would have happened if we had adopted this? And I use all the old newspaper clippings of how we sort of got rid of Tesla and all his theories because they couldn't make a lot of money for, you know, the oil barons that controlled the coal and
Right.
fossil fuel industry at the time. So yeah, no, but I do touch on that in the first book too. And Persephone does make it. And then I do bring some of the characters back from Persephone in the series, of course, to tie up the ends, of what
Yeah.
happens.
So it's a fun read. I really enjoy, like
Yeah.
I always say that, I'm not a big sci-fi reader, but I'm getting to be more of one. Like I can start listing books, sci-fi books now through the podcasts we've done, the authors we've had on, and I did enjoy the book.
Well, I'm so glad
I
to
like-
hear.
I like the social engineering aspect of, in a sense, I mean, I want to say this in the most positive way. I mean
Yes.
it though. The positiveness of holding men more responsible for pregnancy by vasectomies.
Yes.
Easier to do the surgery, easy to reverse, normalize vasectomies. I think that makes more sense than anything because if there is no sperm, there is no pregnancy. And women
Right.
have been spending decades chemically altering themselves just so men don't have to have a snip 2-hour procedure and sit on ice for a day.
It was longer than a day, but yeah.
I don't think I did. I don't think I did. I talk. I don't think did. I talk about vasectomy in my book. I did have social engineering.
The males on Persephone
Yes.
did have vasectomies to go on the ship. And then at least I remember that from the book, don't you?
No,
I don't
the
know.
males.
Yeah, they were sterilized
Yes, perhaps
so
they
that
were,
there
and then
wouldn't be unwanted pregnancies.
yes,
But their
because
sperm was frozen.
yes, that's right. That I remember that we had banks of sperm and eggs, and that
Yeah, but that was it. I mean,
yes, exactly
Yeah.
that, and that people,
Yeah.
that it was essential not to have because they needed to create a community, it was essential not to have people take ownership of the children. My idea was that the children would belong to everybody.
Tertiary. Yeah.
Yes, in that way, and they would be nurtured by the entire community, and because it would be important as they grew their community on the new planet to have that kind of separation, I thought. But yes, I enjoyed some of the social engineering things that I brought in, I think, because it is I do think we are overpopulated, and we do need to very much consider that. I mean, I don't judge people, but when I do see people in refugee camps who have 10 or 12 children, I feel that let me just say that unfortunately there are certain religions that have sort of encouraged this continual procreation, which is not good for our planet. We are now, at 8 billion. We can't sustain that, and I feel that's not a good thing,
Yeah.
for our planet.
Gets hot around here. So
Well, it does, and yeah. So yes, I do have fun
We
with
need
some
more
of those.
childless cat ladies.
Yes, that's exactly right. Or as people, I think, have to consider the resources they have when they bring children into the world, and
Yes.
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
yes, and it doesn't mean that people who don't have a lot of resources can't have children. Of course, it just means that it's important to consider
Don't have 10.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe don't have 12. Yeah,
Yes, don't have 12. And the Catholic religion
only have
hasn't been
17. Elon.
yes, Elan, yeah. The Catholic religion hasn't been terribly positive
Responsible.
in that
No.
regard. you know, I
No.
was raised a Catholic, and I don't want to
Us
be
too.
controversial, but the reason I left the church was uh, the choice that Catholics make, that between the mother and the baby. It's always the mother that must die and not the baby in the Catholic Church, in the very traditional Catholic Church. And that when I got old enough to understand what that meant, it didn't. I knew I couldn't be part of that. But there's some wonderful things about the Catholic religion, and I think it's very service oriented. But it is a patriarchy, and so I don't want to be controversial, because I'm sure there may be people listening to this that
Right.
are profoundly religious, but
We direct them to Spotlight.
yes, yes, exactly. You're exactly right. I want to be respectful, but it is around this whole issue of let's try and keep our population within the resources of the planet, and I do think science fiction can deal with that quite effectively.
Yeah.
Well, the churches are beautiful.
Well,
You got to admit
priests
the
and
church.
altar boys can't procreate. Oh, sorry.
No, no,
My Aaron,
you're right.
my break with the organized religion starts with Deuteronomy.
Oh, tell me.
Do you know what a man's punishment is for raping a woman?
Oh dear.
If she can prove she's a virgin. Now, if she can prove she's a virgin, his punishment is to marry her. If it turns out that she was not a virgin when he raped her, she will be stoned to death.
That's Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
So
yes.
the man's punishment is to marry the person he raped. What's her punishment?
Well, yeah, there's some old school thinking in that book.
Is it being raped, or is it having to marry the guy who did it?
Well, I think, the problem with these books are they're not historical. They're not they're based for people to believe in them. It's around belief. It's not around science or history. These religious books require belief.
Right.
And if you start to get into the science or the historical facts, then they're not valid. And I think people have a perfect right to believe whatever they want. But I base a lot of my thinking on historical facts, the ones I can find, and also science. What is the science?
Well, they
And
tend to call science secular humanism,
yes,
sort of a
that's
dismissive.
yes,
Yeah.
and in a way, yes, it is. It is a secular humanism, but it's also, very. It's funny. The first scientists in the world, I forget what they were called, the forbidden group. They were in the 17th century, and they were a group of men, of course, who came together and decided to do science, and they had to do it secretly because of the church religion at that time did not
was it the
in any
deists?
way. Yeah. Sorry.
Was
What'd
it
you
the
say, Aaron?
deists?
No, it wasn't the deists. They were called the something society. I forget what they were called. The hidden society. They were the first group of scientists. They started to do, dissections of animals, and so they
Yeah.
started to look at things that, the stars, where religion didn't want them to look at stars because God was in the stars, and you didn't look at God. You didn't dissect animals and find. So there was a great deal of prejudice against science and by the various religions.
Well, there
But
still
then,
is, obviously. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
it's just facts in general. There's a
Yes,
prejudice.
yes, definitely. Well, it's a system of belief, not facts. And
Yeah.
I think it's funny. I think as we learn more about other off-Earth civilizations that are not human, we'll start to understand the difference between beliefs and perhaps, mysticism, or,
We're still wrestling with that.
yes, we are. We're still very much in a transitional phase, I think, and I do address that in my fourth book. It's called The Creators. And my people go outside of the multiverse to find out who created our Earth, and they find out it was created through a black hole. And these
Seems kind of Asimov-ish.
It's very Asimovish. Yes, you got it. Thank you. I love Asimov, so I had to give a nod to Asimov.
Yeah.
But I think, all these things are wonderful. Black holes are extraordinary. The idea that we might be in a simulation is a great, a hologram, as Nick
That's it.
Bostrom would call it a simulation, and then Michael Talbot would call it a hologram. But that's a possibility too. I mean, I think of myself being in this room with whiteboards. I don't have any answers, but I have a million questions. And I think if you restrict yourself to beliefs, a system of ideology and beliefs, then you will never
limit
step
yourself.
outside of the box. And I think science fiction does that. It forces you to step outside of your box, and it forces you to ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
it does.
what would you recommend that we do to help offset climate change?
Yes.
What can we do individually?
Yes.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
our next car, or I'm hoping that we're going to be getting a hybrid for our next car. Moving forward, though, what else can we do?
Yes, well, I do think that the things that make a difference. I do think recycling does make a difference. I do think that having solar energy, wind energy, trying to get the things that to get your energy source. For instance, my energy source, not my distribution, but my energy source comes from wind, about 10 or 20%. So look at where your your energy provider gets their energy from, and try and get it from alternative energy sources.
Do you
And
have a turbine or anything at your house, or is this just from the
no,
electric company?
it's just from the company. That's exactly right. And so you do, and so I would say that definitely you can be aware of that, and aware of not traveling as much, of not using as much gas in your car. Hybrids are a great idea. I would say we don't have, unfortunately, enough charging stations, but getting a gas electric car is a really good idea. And putting some solar panels on your house. So I think, there are definitely things that can be done. And there's a person who I love called Bill McGibbon. He is the leader of the climate change movement, and he really liked my book, I'm happy to say. And he has a wonderful Substack, if people know Substack, a wonderful column on Substack where he really informs and encourages people to do certain things. And he's very, very well informed. And he's not terribly positive right now, but he did it this week. He had a whole list of things people could do, like the things that I've talked about.
Bill McGibbon.
It's tough
Substack.
time to be positive right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
More
Substack, that's a
ridiculous
web.
cabinet nominations every day.
It's a I've never used Substacks too much, but they're sort of like white papers, I guess, or
No,
they're like
Substack is
They're like-
it's
they're like-
it's a
Pay-per-view blogs, you could think of it as,
yes, that's
or
perfect. You go,
subscription blog.
yes, it is. And some people, Bill doesn't paywall his one. So
Oh,
if you
good.
go to substack.com, you go to Bill McGibbon, and you will be able to read everything he writes, because he doesn't put a paywall up on his
So
information.
it's like old WordPress blogs, I guess, but
Yes.
you have the option of charging.
Yes, the WordPress, and you have the option of charging, exactly. And I do Medium too. That's where I don't have a Substack yet, but I blog a lot on Medium, and there are some good climate and science bloggers on that. So those are places. But Bill is particularly particularly good on the pragmatic pieces of what we can do given this sort of bleak situation that we're in right now.
So we're talking to Felicity Harley, author of The Burning Years Until the Last Quartet.
Yes.
We're kind of winding down here. We do something at the end of our episodes called the Elite Eight mini bracket. I'm not sure. It's totally up to you if you want to do this. We try to do it pretty quick, kind of like rapid fire. But I feel like this is going to have more of a serious tone this time because we selected top environmental threats. It's not really a light topic.
So we're choosing the most dire threat each time.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that
The biggest threat, I would say.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And
What we do is you get two choices and you pick the one that you think is more
Yes. It's more
Yeah.
threatening.
Yeah.
right. And then
Right.
we come down to that's from 8. Then we come down to
Okay.
4. You pick out of those, and then we have sort of a, I guess,
And then there's 2.
winner.
yeah, a winner.
Oh, all
So you
right.
might find it kind of
Or in this
arbitrary,
case,
but
winner is a weird word to use when it's the worst.
Yes.
yeah, winner.
Yeah.
That's true.
But,
Yes. I mean, when you're happy that, no, I won't say.
topper. How about a topper?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
The
Yeah,
topper.
so what's the first one, Phil?
okay, I'm going to take myself out of it and let you 3 vote so there won't be any ties. But
Right.
the first one we have is deforestation, which I picked, versus radioactive contamination, which I shouldn't get it prejudiced in any way,
Right.
but
Right.
radioactive contamination
Yeah.
versus
Phil
deforestation.
throws up 4 of them, and then I throw 4 back
I
to
would
him.
say radioactive decontamination.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
I kind of lean towards that's going to advance, but I lean towards the deforestation only because deforestation is global, whereas radioactive contamination is, at least for now, more like local.
Yeah.
But I mean, how much? I haven't done much. I don't have a lot of knowledge on that.
Okay.
So the question is, like how much global effect has, say, Chernobyl had?
Well,
Yeah, well,
I think Fukushima
I
or
know it
whatever it
gets
was,
into-
they were able to measure some of that
Yes.
coming to the
Yeah.
west coast of the US.
No,
Okay.
you're right. I was thinking more of nuclear war. So if
Oh,
we
yeah.
take nuclear war off the table, which
Right.
then
I
I
don't
would go with
Yeah, there's
deforestation.
multiple ways of
But
contamination.
deforestation
radioactive
is a
contamination.
reality. Yeah, sorry, Aaron,
Yes.
but yeah, deforestation is a reality, whereas nuclear war is a possibility right now.
Well, I think we'd all love to
But-
take nuclear war off the table.
Right,
Not
right.
just war, but from
Well, yeah.
nuclear energy and
But we have
Yes.
a winner, despite
I think that
your campaigning.
nuclear energy is moving forward, that like one of the cleanest forms of energy if done correctly. The problem is, can we do it correctly?
the
Yes,
problem
fusion.
is the barrels
Fusion.
that are at the bottom of the Santa Monica Bay.
Well, yeah. Okay, I'll give you that.
Well,
So I'm sorry, I vote deforestation. Aaron's voting
That
radioactive
was
contamination.
radioactive contamination.
So that's moving forward.
yep.
Okay.
Radioactive contamination moves on. Okay. The next one is global warming versus air pollution.
Oh, gosh. Global
know.
warming.
Yeah.
Global warming.
Yeah.
All right.
It's the more immediate threat, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
Global
Lise, how
warming.
would you have gone?
I'm gonna go global warming as well because I feel that air pollution has contributed to global warming.
Yes.
And increased it.
No, you're exactly. That's exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. The next one is plastic pollution versus water shortages.
Oh my gosh, these are so hard. Water shortages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can only live a
Yeah.
few days without water.
Yes. And food. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So that was a sweep. So finally, the last matchup of the first round is water pollution versus genetic modification / Monsanto.
Oh gosh.
This is kind of a
Water.
depressing.
It is.
Water shortage because Monsanto, yes, there's been a lot of
Yeah, water contamination.
Water
yes.
pollution, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, water
Because I'm
pollution.
sure Monsanto pollutes too.
Yes, because you saw in my book that they've decreased the natural varieties of food. Yes.
Okay, well, that makes an interesting matchup for the second round,
Mhm.
and we'll get to that. But the first matchup of the
Are we gonna have
second
water
round-
pollution versus water shortage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a very interesting discussion.
Yeah.
The variancy, the
Mhm.
vagaries of those
They're
two
quite
things.
related, yeah.
They're all interrelated.
Yeah.
So
Well, anyway, in any event, radioactive contamination versus global warming. I feel like that's
well,
big.
if it's limited radioactive contamination, global warming
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Global warming.
Global warming.
Yeah. And then I do feel that if you had put in nuclear war, or nuclear explosions, that would be
Yes.
different.
Well, that's
Well, I
heard
do
that.
have a
Well, I don't
limited
think-
nuclear war in the Middle East. I have one at the beginning of the book, a nuclear war in the Middle East,
Right, right.
which I do predict may happen in about 2033. That's a
Yeah.
prediction, I'm
Which-
afraid to
which-
say.
Which contributes to the collapse of the global climate.
Yes.
But also contributes to, there's also the weather manipulation that the countries
Yes.
start.
Weather modification, chemtrails.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Are
So
you
we're
familiar-
definitely testing
But
that program. Yeah, exactly.
Philip's looking something up
Are
real
you
quick.
familiar with Annie Jacobson?
No.
Okay. Well,
No.
she wrote a book on nuclear war that's really fascinating. But
Oh,
I didn't read the
okay.
book, but she's fascinating to listen to.
Oh, okay.
Global warming versus oh no, we got this
Yeah.
the second.
We just did
the
that one.
Water
second-
shortages versus water pollution.
Yeah, here we go. This is
Well,
Water shortage
water
can be
pollution.
temporary.
Yes, water pollution causes water shortage, right?
Yeah, these are
Well, yes and
these are
no.
really close.
Yeah.
You've got the plastics with the plastic water bottles. I
Yes.
won't.
We got droughts.
We don't. No.
That's
No.
droughts.
No plastic water bottles. None
well here we go.
in my house.
It's our show, so we're going to put those two together and say water issues versus global
Okay.
warming.
Yes, very
you go.
good. Oh no, because water issues, that's great. Well,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
no, water issues versus global warming. Well, global warming will cause water issues.
Yeah,
Okay.
So
The
they're
overriding.
related again,
It's-
but water issue, I mean,
global warming takes in water issues. So if we say
Mhm.
global warming, it means water issues, water
Yeah.
pollution, plastic
includes it,
pollution.
yeah.
Means it's the big one. So we sort of got to the big one.
Yeah. We got
Yes,
to
the
the
big
bottom.
Lebowski. Yep, we got
That's
it.
right.
That's right.
Now, I have a
The
question.
Deuteronomy abides. I was
Yes.
resisting saying that pun before.
I like it.
Now my question here is, do you have any opinion as to how far back someone should buy land, like in say on the coasts to take advantage of it when all this is done, and
How far
that way they'll
back?
have
You mean-
beachfront property.
How far inland?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I wouldn't be in a coastal
I thought
community.
it was time travel for a
Yes.
second.
Yes, I mean, yes, you're right.
No.
That was a good one. Look at Florida, and
Yeah.
that'll give you the story. Florida hopefully will soon go underwater. No, that's not true. That Florida is a very thin, narrow thing, and so it's very
And
hard
it's an
to
isthmus.
Peninsula.
avoid water. So Florida, as I said, I think Florida will probably eventually be underwater in about 50 years, most of it. So I wouldn't go to Florida.
It's below the water table.
Yes, it is. That's the problem. And it gets these hurricanes. I would not go to Florida. I would move, and I wouldn't be near the coast.
No, I
because
wouldn't move to Florida.
Well,
No.
Aaron would have the Pacific Ocean in his front lawn at this
He
point.
might, yes.
Hey,
Cool.
Aaron, good job. Beachmont property.
I'm at,
Yes, he has beachfront property.
not where I'm at. I'm at 6,240 feet elevation.
That'd be a
The ocean, the water table is rising.
Yeah.
True, true.
I mean, maybe not quite that high, but
It
you're
would
going
have
to be
to
a lot
rise.
closer to beachfront
It would
than
have
you
to
are
rise a
now.
mile and then about another 1,000 feet.
Well, you
Wow.
might find
Beach.
yourself as a series of islands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The new
Well,
Hawaii.
This has been great. It always runs over when we have a good time like this.
I
Well,
do
good.
have one last question for you.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there anything that we did not touch on or discuss that you would particularly like to highlight?
Not really, other than that people can go to Amazon and get a copy of my book, The Burning Years,
Well,
and I would very much like them to do that. And no, we touched on all the subjects that I wanted to talk about because I really did want to focus on climate change. We talked about other authors. It's been great. I've really enjoyed myself. It's been really fun.
When's the second
you.
book come out?
That's our goal.
March to 2025, and it's called Homo Deus.
Okay.
As you
Maybe
know
we'll
what
have to
that
have you
means.
back for the second book.
Yeah, so I'd love to, and I'll make sure you get a copy, okay? That would be
Yeah.
wonderful.
That would
Yes.
be great.
Yes.
If it's signed, we won't be unhappy.
If it's what?
If it's
If it's-
signed, we will not be
Oh,
unhappy.
signed.
Oh, yeah, no, I'll send you a signed copy. I'll send you a signed copy. Yes, for sure. I'd love to. You'll have
Well,
some, yeah.
We got a nice library of books by people that have been on the show. So
Yeah.
On the show.
continue to advertise your book.
One of the things, I'm not saying that most podcasts don't, but we do read the books.
We're starting to
Yes,
have
no, you
Don't
certainly
wanna have
have.
people
I
on
didn't
if we
this
don't
time.
read the book.
I didn't.
You haven't
You're
read
gonna-
it yet.
Time.
Yes,
I
that's
think
okay.
you're really gonna like it.
Yeah.
There's,
good.
it's got details and I know that you're a
Looking
detailed
forward to
person.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
So-
I've been reading the Discworld books again.
Oh, okay.
Barry Pratchett.
I love the Discworld
Oh,
book.
yes.
I'm reading, I don't know. I don't remember which one. I'm reading one right now. I'm kind of in between. I usually have a book on tape, a book on Kindle, and a paper book going all at the same time.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sort of like that. You know, a book that I loved and an author I love is Richard Powers. We didn't talk about him. He's an environmental author, and he wrote The Overstory, which is a brilliant book on the environment. And he just wrote a great book, and it's called Playground. And I could not recommend it more. It's sort of, it's not exactly science fiction, but it's a wonderful tribute to the oceans and what we're doing to them. And also it brings in the whole world of artificial intelligence, which he's very, very good at. So yeah, I just finished that one. That was a good one.
Okay.
All right. Well,
It's nice
until we
to meet
meet
you, Felicity.
again.
We have social.
Twitter,
Yeah, pod.
Instagram,
Yeah, pod.
Facebook.
Yeah, pod. So let us know. Hit us back. Have a great week.